Hello everyone and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles Long. With me as always is my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob?
I'm doing swell, Charles. As well as you can do on a day like today.
On a beautiful sunny day.
Yeah, it actually is pretty sunny here, which is nice. I've been getting pictures from my friends in I've got a friend in New York right now, I've got a friend in Philly right now.
Yeah.
And a friend in Massachusetts, and they've been sending pictures of the sky because it's on fire.
Doesn't look good, I have to say.
Doesn't look fun, but, I'm happy here. It looks sunny here, so I'm, as long as I'm okay, that's all that matters.
That is the only important thing. And also,
I assume Scotland's not on fire.
It is gorgeous here. It's been absolutely beautiful these last couple of weeks. So, I am also happy. All those other places can go fuck themselves. I don't care. I care about where I am. Where I am, it's quite nice. So yeah. And
yeah.
It looks really bad. And obviously I only see it on Twitter, but I asked my mom about it and she was like, it doesn't look good. Gotta say. Looks bad.
Yeah, air quality is important, I guess, or something. But you know what's even more important than air quality?
A TV show?
No, wow, Charlie, wow, that was a horrific thing to say. TV matters as much as air quality? What's wrong with you?
No, it matters as much
My
as...
TV show is the answer.
You're right, you're right.
It's more important
there you go.
than air quality.
You're right.
This isn't just any TV show, Charlie.
Well, I was going to say any TV show is more important than New Yorkers' air quality. Because fuck New Yorkers, who cares about them?
Yeah, who cares about them?
Garbage.
Except for my friend.
Except for him, except for your friends and anyone I've met personally. But besides that, fuck them.
I think Ainsley's in New York.
Oh, Ainsley's in New York?
Dropping him. Yep. So poor him with his poor air quality. Sorry about that.
Working for Facebook? Still?
Well, now, let's not, dox him here, Charlie. His address is 234,
Yeah.
whatever. Not like anyone cares. So the pitch I've got today it is interesting and exciting, I hope.
I'm interested and excited to hear it.
Yeah, so it's a historical thing again. I've been done a couple of these. Res Publica, which still isn't done, obviously, but it's not that. And then the Persian Game of Thrones.
You like a historical...
This one's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like historical pitches. They're fun. They happened, so... they're educational and also exciting.
Yeah, like an Assassin's Creed video game. Education.
Yeah, super educated. Assassin's Creed Black Flag helped me pass a geography test, so I'm not knocking on Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed.
It's hard to remember all those little countries in the Gulf.
Yeah.
Mexico. Assassin's Creed really helps you out with that.
It does, because you get to sail there and stab people.
I'm like, oh shit, I know where this is because I know exactly the path from this place to that place in Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Hey, once you've killed a Panamanian, is that what you call people from Panama?
No, but that is awesome. I love Panamanian. That you should make something from that.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, a country or a people in one of your pitches.
Okay.
Panamanians.
I will.
Because it makes them sound like they're maniacs.
Yeah.
I feel like a wrestler should be called the Panamanian.
Panamanian. Oh, that is good. Maybe he's a super.
Maybe that's the new title of my show here, the Panamanian.
All right, good.
Maybe that's not related at all. The title that I actually have is in flux here. The options, two of which, are Seers of Doom, which is Seers of Doom. Seers of Doom.
Like the observers of Doom. Not like Seers,
or like the predictors
store.
of Doom, the prophets of Doom.
Yeah, okay. Not the store.
I didn't want to do prophets though, because that'd be stealing it from someone else.
Yeah.
But though the second option title is stealing it from someone else. Under the Banner of Heaven.
Okay. Where are you stealing
That's
that
the
from?
Second puzzle. This is a TV show and a book called Under the Banner of Heaven.
Oh.
Though they're about like the Mormons. And I feel like this is more fitting for the title Under the Banner of Heaven, because this is medieval times and they have banners,
And they all went to heaven.
Yes, of course. Well, maybe not these people that I'm about to talk about, at least in the traditional Christian view.
Not that all went to heaven. Everyone.
Because what we're talking about is the Anabaptist Kingdom in 1534, Munster, Germany. So the following is an event that actually happened, the Anabaptist Rebellion. This is set right after the Great Reformations. That's basically when, like, the Catholic Church had a big split, and people were like, we're breaking away from the Pope and stuff.
Was this also the Great Schism, or is that different? Is that a different thing?
The Great Schism is when the Orthodox Church broke away, which is like the Greek Orthodox Church, which is before this. This is the Protestant Reformation.
Right.
You should know this. I learned this at the same school you did.
Yeah,
so.
probably at the same time. But
probably at the same time.
I didn't pay attention in religious studies class.
Yeah. But so basically what you need to know is that at this point in history, we're in Germany, there's a lot of strife because people are, in different sects of the Christian religion. Some people are Catholic, some people are Lutheran, some people are making up their own shit, and some people are Anabaptists. Now, I don't want to, shit on the Anabaptists, so I make it clear this is like a radical sect of them. I'm sure there are nice Anabaptists
I'm sure
today.
they're lovely, if there are any left on the planet Earth, which...
I think there are. I think it's still not thriving, but maybe somewhat populous religion.
There's every religion has some members. There's Jedis.
And they've very much made an effort to try to separate themselves from this group. And all the Anabaptists at the time were not part of this group and didn't like this. Not everyone wanted to be a part of this group. But this is a pretty crazy group of people. And the stuff that happens is pretty insane. That's why I felt like there should be a show about it.
Wild.
So, I'm also doing this as a movie.
Oh.
By the way, so it's a little different.
So, like,
I'm gonna try to I've got a lot of notes here, so I'm gonna try to get through this quickly because I feel like it's gonna lag a little bit.
Fine. 6 seasons in a movie. I understand. Bringing it back to Dan Harmon.
Yep. So, all right, we'll go with the Seers of Doom is the title, since I don't want to steal Under the Banner of Heaven.
Okay.
1534, Munster, Germany. We open up with a man named Bernard Rothman. He's a highly educated, professor-like man, completely dedicated to this fanatic ideal of Anabaptism on an intellectual level.
Okay.
But he's kind of emotionally detached from society. Just so you know what Anabaptism it's kind of like there's like a couple technical differences from Christianity, but one of the big ones is that you have to get baptized as an adult because they want you to like agree to the religion as an adult.
Oh.
That's kind of like one of the main doctrine differences, which Christianity kind of has in something that's called confirmation, but we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because it's who cares.
Keep your
but that's one of the big differences, right? That they have. And so Bernard Rothman, he's in the center of Munster, and he's given a speech about these Anabaptist ideas. And some people are loving it, while others yelled at him for being an Anabaptist. Like some people, like there's like a devoted group, but most of the crowd is against it. So we get the feeling that the city is not all for what he's talking about. And he's being vague enough in his speech. He's not like saying I'm an Anabaptist. He's like saying that these ideas are good. Maybe we should think about them. And after the speech, he's confronted by guards afterwards who tell him that he's like, well, in the Prince-Bishopric of Munster, Anabaptism is illegal. And the Prince Bishop will have you killed if you continue, talking about this kind of stuff. We're not going to do anything because we know like your buddy in the town council will protect you if you go to trial, but you got to stop talking about this kind of stuff. At BR is like Bernard Rothman's like I'm not I'm not an Anabaptist. I'm a Lutheran. Yeah. I'm with you guys, right? Yeah. Or as Lutheranism and Catholics they're not some people are Catholic in this period, some people are Lutheran. But they are fighting. But in this particular place, this particular time, it's okay to be Lutheran.
Wait, they're fighting? Wait, people are fighting
Catholics
over religion?
Yeah, they are today too, Charlie.
Huh?
So,
What?
Maybe in your very city.
I have no idea what this is news to me. I think I should do some investigation.
You should. So Bernard Rothman, he's like, yeah, I'm Lutheran. I'm not Anabaptist. Yeah, and then he goes home to where Bernard Nipperdalling is. They have the same first name, which is a little confusing. So I'll refer to Bernard Rothman as Rothman and Bernard Nipperdalling as Bernard.
Okay.
Which we'll do in the movie too.
All right.
Obviously, just to make things easier for the public. I don't want to change their names because I feel like, why when they're, I don't want to be unhistorical here.
Exactly.
So we'll go Rothman and Bernard. So Rothman gets home, and Bernard's there. He's printing hundreds of the sermon that was just said, like he typed it up, and he's printing it out to send to Anabaptists across the country. And they're talking about how, like, they got to get more people in the town so that they can legalize their religion. They need a majority in the town council so they can pass this law. And so they're printing out the pamphlets talking about this, and they give them to a messenger, and we cut to Jan van Leyden, who's a very handsome, charismatic guy. He's described actually as movie star handsome. He's a failed actor, so we'd have to get someone really good looking to be Jan van Leyden.
Get a failed actor.
I don't. Someone around 25. Yeah, failed actor. Someone around 25 that's just really handsome.
Kevin Spacey.
Yes, Kevin Spacey as Jan van Leyden.
All right, good. I'm glad.
I can't think of one 25-year-old male actor right now.
Danny Masterson.
I don't know who that is.
That's
oh wait, no, I do know who that is. That's not gonna happen either.
Oh, why not? I'm thinking of failed actors. Handsome men.
We could have Timothy Chalamet.
Get Timothy Chalamet in there.
Probably someone more handsome than that.
Yeah. Well, how about...
You know what? The guy, he plays Jacob in Euphoria. I don't know his name.
I don't know any... I've never seen
Austin
Euphoria.
Butler also works.
Austin Butler?
He played Elvis.
I had an
That's
idea.
Fine. We'll say it's Austin Butler.
What if we just cast all of BTS? The K-pop band.
Well...
to play this.
These are Germans.
That's fine. But I'm assuming that the show is going to be in English, right? Unless
Yes.
But if we did it in German and we had subtitles, that would be pretty good. If we got Austin Butler and made him German.
That'd be pretty funny.
That would be funny.
So, Jan van Leyden, Austin Butler, is he just had an audition, which he absolutely bombed. And he walks out and his wife's there, and she's like, it's not, it's okay. It's not too bad, but he's all upset about it. And they pass through the market where someone is reading Rothman's speech, and Jan van Leyden is like, "Oh wow, this is some interesting stuff." And like the speech is telling like people come to Munster, this is your chance for advancement for to the future of Anabaptism. We'll take the city and all this stuff. Like we'll have control of our own city. And he's like, he lights up and he's like, this is my chance to join something meaningful. If I could get on the ground floor of this thing, I don't know where I could go. And she's like, okay, she's fine, I guess. I'll come join you in like a year or so. Mm-hmm. I gotta deal with stuff at home. He's got a kid and stuff. He's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go and I'll send you a letter when you should join me. Back in Munster, Anabaptists are flooding into the city. Rothman is rebaptizing people like crazy. He's getting a little overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. Bernard Nipperdalling and him are rejoicing, this is great. We've got so many new people coming. Our religion is really flourishing. This is great. This is so good. And they go out to celebrate. And they go to a bar, and that's where they meet Jan van Leyden, who just walked into town. And they both really like him because he's really handsome and charismatic, of course.
He smells good.
And they can see him as a potential face of their religion. Bernard Nipperdalling is kind of he's really wealthy. He's a very big businessman in the town. He's on the town council. He's well respected. He's good head,
head for business.
Figurehead, but he's not really charismatic. He's not really good at getting people to poor people to like him,
mm-hmm. He's not a John Travolta type. Guy. He's not getting all those dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like the money guy.
Mm-hmm.
He can get the money, and he can talk with the big wigs, but he's not the kind of guy to give speeches.
Mm-hmm.
And Bernard Rothman is like the preacher kind of guy, but he's not really great at preaching, because he's like a professor. He goes up there and he's like lecturing you, and he's not the kind of person to get you all hyped up. He's like, it can be kind of boring sometimes.
A little bit, yeah. Okay, I get you.
But the Jan van Leyden, he's the actor. He can get people fired up, and he can really emotionally and like get people interested.
Yeah.
Also, he's really handsome in this period of time, so people are like, okay, yeah, whatever he says, really.
He's very handsome in this period of time, so that means in like modern day he's like a 6. People were ugly in the past.
I don't know, but like it's worth more in that time period. I guess.
It's definitely worth more. Now you could be ugly as sin and get a job anywhere, doing anything in the world. Okay, maybe that's not true, but doing a lot of things.
So they baptize Jan van Leyden, and they have a montage of more baptisms and speeches. And during the speeches, things are getting a little bit more radical. He's tossing in more Anabaptist beliefs in there. So they want to get rid of private property. You're going to get a feeling that it's kind of communist. In a second, all other religions are bad.
Okay.
They want to vote, and then he's like talking about how you got to vote for our candidates in the council. And also everyone is equal, which is, sounds like fine in our time period, but in this time period where you have like royalty who are blue bloods who are above everyone else, this is a really radical idea. And it's like goes against everything that this society understands and exists upon.
Yeah.
So it gets getting a little crazy for their time period. But as the modern viewer, we're kind of like, these guys aren't so bad. They're little socialist stuff.
A little socialism, a little bit of equality as a treat.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
And so they win the town council vote. That's after the montage, like they're at the voting platform, and then like the results are announced. Everyone's excited. Bernard Knipperdolling wins the election. Jan van Leyden wins the election, and then at that moment, Rothman, he speaks to the crowd. He comes out officially as Anabaptist.
Good for him.
And he's like, yeah, we need to be Anabaptists. They start, people are rejoicing because the crowd is mostly Anabaptist now, and they can fully start talking about how they're Anabaptists, and they realize that that's okay to do this in the city. So they're excited. Their religion isn't going to get them burned at the stake.
That is good. That's always a good thing. I know when
and Bernard Rothman. What do you say?
I was just gonna say I remember the first day I moved somewhere where my religion wouldn't get me burned at the stake. It was radical. It was nice. Went out, had an ice cream, started praising the word of Satan, and didn't catch on fire not once.
I thought you were more of a Mithras guy, but
it's kind of fluid. I just do whatever the voices tell me to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like an oracle.
Yeah, you are an oracle. You are the Oracle of Doom. The Seers of Doom. So, at the next scene here, Bernard Rothman is going to go to the convent where the nuns are, and he starts reading the Bible to the nuns in German. Now, in this time period, the nuns didn't know how to read the Bible in Latin, so they couldn't read the Bible at all. And he basically tells them that nowhere in the Bible does it say that they need to lock themselves in a convent and never have sex ever, and to just worship God all the time. And he says, actually in the Old Testament it says that you should be out there and multiplying. And these these young girls, many of whom didn't want to be there in the first place, are like, yeah, fuck this. Let's get out. Let's leave.
Let's get laid.
They're like, who needs this? We can get out of here. So we get a feeling that they're kind of freeing people. Not everything they're doing is bad.
Yeah.
It
doesn't really sound like they've done anything
so far. Anything bad. Yeah. So at this point, I really want in the movie you to feel like these people are doing a good thing. The next scene, Jan van Leyden and Bernard Knipperdolling burst out of their home, foaming at the mouth, saying the end is coming. And at first the population is like, what the hell are they doing? And all of a sudden they get really into it. And we're going to see the point of view from them, where it's the foam is coming out of their mouths, and it's on fire, and there's Everything, all the colors are going crazy. Like, this isn't like everything in the world around them is just spinning, and there's weird shapes floating around. It's like this strange drug sequence.
Like any,
but it's gonna have like a very much religious connotation to it. Like, it looks like, you know, like the world is like split between heaven and earth, and we see like the heavens above, and we see the fire coming down from below, and all this crap.
All the crosses are bursting out of the ground and looking over, you know, huge monoliths. I would think it'd be cool if he was foaming from the mouth, and the foam falls to the ground and it sizzles like acid, you know? They just start spewing all this crazy stuff, and, you know, demons burst out of their, you know, heads, and fly around. It's very psychedelic. Cool.
All this crazy stuff, psychedelic stuff, is happening. And that's when Rothman gets back, and he's like, what the hell is going on? And Jan van Leyden stands up, wipes the foam out from his mouth, you know? Like, he was just doing, like, he wasn't actually foaming at the mouth. You can see that it was just like a little, you know, like, sort of gag that he had going.
Yeah.
And he's like, what is happening? And he's like, well, I poisoned the rye bread with ergot. And he's like, what the hell? Like, that, so ergot, you know, he'll kind of explain this, but not completely, because it doesn't make sense to the, we'll do it in a way that makes sense to the audience, but ergot poisoning on rye bread was something that happened in this past, and it's thought to have happened in this city.
Yeah. I think I've heard of it before. Jan van Leyden did this.
It essentially has the same effect as LSD.
Yeah.
So he's essentially just poisoned the entire town with LSD by poisoning the bread supply.
Yeah.
So we have all these people, like this huge, you know, sequence going on. Everyone's going freaking crazy. In this time period, they called it St. Anthony's Fire. That was what they called. Because it happened a lot of times by accidents, because ergot's this fungus that grows on rye bread.
Yeah, when rye bread is left alone for too long, right? It grows, and then people are like, well, it's still fine to eat it. Then they get poisoned. They go all crazy.
So if anyone out there, if you want LSD but you can't get any, ergot poisoning is completely safe. You know, this is definitely a good way to do this. And I'm not being sarcastic. I am being sarcastic.
No, do drugs by eating moldy rye bread. It's a good idea, everyone. It's safe. Good idea. Jake said so.
Get some St. Anthony's Fire. You definitely won't end up like the people in this story.
All safe and happy.
So after this mass hysteria, right, everyone in the town, or at least 99% of the town, or 90%, they're Anabaptists now. Like, they believe in this crap. If you didn't before, you just saw what just happened, and you're like, okay, I'm joining up.
Yeah.
So we get a sense that, like, there's a bit of deceit involved in what they're doing now. But, you know, everything else they were doing was pretty good, so maybe they're all right. And they legalize Anabaptism.
Good.
So we have, like that's something that, like, they have at a speech. And they're sending out, we kind of get more of a montage, like they legalize Anabaptism, and they're sending out more letters, and more people are arriving. And this is, you know, like we see the flood of people coming in, and amongst them is a man named Jan Matthias. Jan Matthias is one of the coolest looking people in this whole movie.
We have Google.
Jan Matthias, you probably won't get a good picture, but Jan Matthias is very tall, very gaunt, and has this crazy large beard.
Okay.
He looks kind of like Gandalf, I would say.
Oh, okay, cool.
Crazy large beard, wears all black all the time. He looks like Gandalf, or maybe like an Old Testament preacher. That's the way, like, they kind of understood him. And with him is his wife, who's incredibly beautiful. He's probably like 40 years old, and she's like 20. And she's incredibly beautiful, like the most beautiful person you've ever seen. And she's just all in white. So he's all black, he's all in white. And it's like this incredibly stark image, you know, between the two. And he just looks like terrifying. He looks like Doomsday, you know?
Yeah.
And
we could do like a really cool
he comes
shot.
into the city.
We could do like a really cool shot that's like, you know, they'll do these in old, like, black and white movies, where they just, like, really highlight the eyes, and they're just, like, super piercing through everything else. And you just get lightning in the background as the wind blows in his hair as soon as he walks into town. He's just standing there with it. I'm assuming he's got a walking stick. He's standing there and just staring over everything, maybe on a little bit of a hill, looking down at this entire town, as his eyes are bright white and the rest of his face is like gray and black, and he's just like, lightning strikes in the background. Very cool. Very good.
I forgot to mention before this, we'll have a scene where they're excited that he's coming. Bernard Nippelding, Jan van Leyden, and Bernard Rothman. They'll be like, holy shit, Jan Matthias is coming. He's like the superstar. He's the Elvis of the Anabaptist world.
Okay.
Like, he is, I don't know, like, or Michael Jackson during, like, Michael Jackson's heyday, right? He's the ultimate, like, he's like a pop star.
Yeah.
Essentially.
But he's a freaky-looking preacher man.
Freaky-looking douche. So he'll enter the city, like, you know, on a white horse. You know, everyone, it's like when Jesus entered, we'll have, like, a parallel, because, like, there's when Jesus entered Jerusalem, there was people, like, all around dropping palms. That's kind of like a big thing in the Christian religion, like on Palm Sunday, like people dropping palms, and Jesus enters on a donkey. And we'll probably have the same thing, except it's a white horse. So we have this sort of religious parallel to him.
And Jesus.
And, yeah. And so, JM enters the city and, like, sort of immediately gets power. Like, Bernard Nipperdoling, Jan van Leyden, and Bernard Rothman, they're like the band that just got, like, it's like they're, you know, some high school band, and John Lennon just joined, you know? Like, obviously this guy's in charge now.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really like Jan van Leyden. So
why not?
He's like immediately doesn't really like him because he kind of sees that he's not really into it. You know, Jan van Leyden kind of seems like a con man, and Jan Matthias is like the shit. It's also kind of funny because they have the same first name.
It is good.
And they don't like each other. You know,
Jan.
But maybe we could have a little tiny joke where he's like, "Your name's also Jan."
Ugh.
Like, no, you're Leyden now. Like that you're no longer Jan.
You shall no longer be Jan. I am the only Jan. My name's also Jan. Change it. Lightning strike.
And he kind of sees him as like a threat to his sort of incoming power, because Jan van Leyden is like this charismatic, good-looking guy, you know, as well. So Jan Matthias comes into town. You know, he rides through with the white horse. He goes into the front of the town. He gives a speech where he says that all non-converts should die. So everyone that hasn't converted to Anabaptism should die. And this, immediately a hush goes over the crowd. They're like, what? What? Like, everything in the story so far, they've been doing good things.
Yeah.
But now he's saying everyone that hasn't converted should die. A pretty stark change to what they've been going for so far, between equality and everyone that didn't join should die. And Bernard Nipperdoling, you know, the businessman, the guy that's, you know, been in this town probably the longest, like, you know, goes up and he whispers in his ear, and he's like, that might not be a good idea, because the whole Holy Roman Empire will come here to kill us if we kill them. So, you know, that might not be the best thing for us. Yep. So Jan Matthias is like, and then he turns around, he starts talking to someone that isn't there. And the crowd is confused. And Bernard Rothman, like, goes up and he's like, he's actually talking to God. You might not know this about Jan Matthias, but he has, like, he could at any point turn around and talk to God. He's not just like a prophet. He is like, he's got this walkie-talkie to God. And so the people are like, okay,
cool.
That's cool, I guess. And Jan Matthias turns around. He says, God says it's okay if we just exile them instead. And the people, you know, so, you know, already committed to this religion. And now they've got this guy who can talk to God, and they believe him. Like, first they're like, okay, but they see him, you know, they see what he looks like, and they're like, well, this guy can't be wrong, right? Like, he looks like a prophet, so he has to be a prophet,
yeah,
right?
Look at his wife. Of course, like, obviously God cares about him more than he cares about me.
And also, you know, he's backed by Bernard Rothman, Bernard Nipperdoling, and Jan van Leyden, who were already kind of in charge before. So they're like, okay, yeah, we'll listen to this dude. And so a small group of people get together and they go door to door. By small, like, you know, a couple hundred people going door to door in this 10,000 person town, kicking out all the Catholics. If you're Catholic, you have to leave immediately. You have no choice.
Yeah.
And if you're Lutheran, you can convert. So this is like a big, montage of them going in, grabbing people and kicking them out of the city.
Oh,
smashing
I like that.
stuff, taking all their goods and stuff.
Because this is the third montage so far in the film.
A lot of montages.
But I
don't
like
really
it because the third one, the first two are positive. They have positive connotation because the first one is preaching, the second one is freeing, and then I think it's a good, wrap up that the third montage is like violence and exile. That's good. I like it.
Yeah, they're demanding Lutherans to convert. Catholics are getting kicked out. Like this is sort of like it's got sort of like a Nazi Germany sort of feel, like kicking out Jews and putting them in camps, except they're just kicking them out of the city.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, what's that movie called?
Schindler's List.
The big one. Schindler's List. Did you say Hitler's List?
I said Schindler's List.
I heard Hitler's List.
Hitler's List is way longer.
I think they have a similar montage scene to what I'm looking for here in that movie. Yeah, Hitler's List is a very different movie. So people that say no also are killed. So you've got this, murdering, kicking people out, forcing people to convert thing. And the people that are converting are like doing it because they want to keep their stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not really, they're not really converting because they want to. So the Prince Bishop arrives at the edge of the city. This is the first time we see him. He's the guy that's actually supposed to be in charge of the city. And he arrives at the edge of the city with a massive army. So this guy is going to be like older, probably like 60s, and he's got kind of like a stressed out sort of feel to him.
How about
like his life? He's got a lot of responsibility, and he's not doing well, mentally.
None of us.
Not that he's like going crazy. It's just that he's like really stressed.
Really stressed. Let's say Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
We could do Russell Crowe. I think. A little fatter Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Sort of like maybe a little bigger than in the movie Nice Guys.
Okay. And he's kingly.
Just a little bigger.
A little.
Yeah, and he's a little. Oh, he's not kingly. He's the Prince Bishop.
Yeah.
So he's in the clergy. He's a priest.
He's got a big hat. One of those big.
He's got a big hat. Yeah. And he's like not all put together. He's really having a rough time because his biggest city is now controlled by Anabaptists. And so he arrives with a big army that's mainly like he shows up and he's got these commanders and he's talking with them and he's like doesn't really know all of them because a lot of them are mercenaries and a lot of them are like borrowed from like other rulers around Germany.
Yeah.
He's real stressed out. We're gonna get this whole sort of fumbling him telling people what to do and not really knowing what to do because he's not a huge military guy. But he arrives and the walls, people are like looking over like, oh shit, like there's an army outside now, because we got rid of everyone. And inside, in a meeting room, Jan van Leyden, Bernard Rothman, and Bernard Knipperdoling are like freaking out. They're like, oh shit, this is not good. This is really not good. We're gonna get murdered. All of us are gonna die. I mean, we have a lot of people in the city, so we can defend it for a while, but we need reinforcements. And so they decide to send out letters to Anabaptists for reinforcements. Like they send them all over the country. They're like, printing them. Like there's gonna be like, them just scraping together what they can. And letters, we're to see people receiving the letter all across the Holy Roman Empire, and they begin arming themselves and going to
marching
to Munster.
Yeah,
marching to Munster. So we get a feeling that okay, well, look, this is dangerous. We're outside, but also there's people that might be coming. This is like the siege of Helm's Deep, right? The people are inside, and there's the massive army outside, but Gandalf said he was coming on the third day or whatever, so they expect reinforcements to come. After they send out these letters and they think people are coming, Jan Matthias gives another speech, and they demands that they burn all books, and they ban private property and money, etc. Like all the sort of capitalist sort of ideas. Though this isn't a capitalist society, really. It's more, feudalist.
Yeah. A capitalist.
So all private property, all that stuff's gone. And people are like going through and they're this is just sort of happening in the background as things are progressing, books are being burned and stuff. And we're gonna get a scene of late at night guard duty. I think that these people are going to have to be put earlier in the story just so we can see, like, maybe in the first crowd when Bernard Rothman is giving his speech, we see these two guys.
Yeah.
And, like, we see him throughout. I don't really know how to place
We
them
can have a Goldenstein. What's the other guy? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern?
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, yeah, just like in...
just like around.
Yeah.
And you...
in Hamlet.
Yeah, in Hamlet.
That's the Hamlet reference.
It is.
So these guys are Hubert Reuschner and his brother Henry Gress. They don't have the same last name. Because, well, I guess we can make Henry Reuschner as well. But in real life, these people aren't brothers. I'm just making them brothers for the story.
Because it's better. Works better.
Because I need motivations for Henry Gress, and in real life he doesn't really have them. So we'll say Henry Gress is brothers with Henry Reuschner, or Hubert Reuschner. So we got Hugh and Henry are on guard duty, and they're talking about what's happening in the city, and Hubert is this blacksmith in the city. And so earlier in the story, we're probably gonna have to show him like being this well-respected person who, like, you know, people in the city like, but he sort of gets indoctrinated in the Anabaptist views, but he's not a whole about the killing people thing. Like, he's against it.
Maybe
he's a voice of protest against stuff.
Maybe he makes like some fancy, you know, piece of jewelry or like a sword or a hilt or something for the professor. What's the professor's last name? What do we call him?
Henry or Rothman.
Rothman. Yeah, he makes Rothman some like nice piece of jewelry or something to show his dedication. We can get that like initial conversation between the two of them.
Yeah, and then like when people are being kicked out of the city, he's like maybe offering them like food and such, you know, to sort of ease their travels
as they leave. Yeah.
But so they're both on guard duty, him and his brother, and Hubert is, you know, he's not happy with Jan Matthias and all these new rules, and he's like, he calls him an idiot, and people overhear this. One person also, you know, walking around the walls is Jan van Leyden. He overhears that this guy just talks shit about the, you know, the prophet, the dude that's, you know, that the head of their whole thing, you know, the top dog in this whole, you know, scheme that they've got going on. And he goes and he tells him, and the next day, in the next scene, Jan Matthias has, like, we see him go up into, like, on the pulpit, and he brings forward Hubert Reuschner in chains, and he brings him to the center of the town. He demands that he be killed for, like, you know, he says he's possessed and he should be executed immediately because he dared question, you know, the prophet. And this goes against all the ideas of the town and, like, the ideas of trial and equality, right, that they've been talking about beforehand. It's like contradicting it, and it goes against the rules of the town where they have trials and people come forward, you know. Henry Gress comes forward and he's like, you can't do this to my brother. Like, we've got rules in this town. Like, we're supposed to have a fair trial, and you can't allow this to happen. And people around him are like quiet and unsure, and but like I don't like it. Other people are coming up and saying like, yeah, I agree with this guy. You can't just, you know, take out our blacksmith. We love him.
Yeah, he's the bomb. He's the best. He's so nice.
And at this point, Jan Matthias becomes visibly insane. Like, his face is red. The veins in his face are like exploding because he's so angry and like just like he cannot believe that these people are daring to question him. Right? He's the prophet. Right? And so he's like losing his mind on the stage. And while he's doing this, like unable to speak because he's so angry. Jan van Leyden, the guy that he doesn't really like at this point, but just told him that, like, you know, he's just told him that this, you know, guy shit on him, mainly because Jan van Leyden wants to try to get his good favor.
Yeah.
This, you know, really handsome actor who has never really fought in his life grabs a halberd from a guard and stabs the blacksmith in the shoulder, yelling, like, you know, death to all infidels or something like that.
How about this?
But Jan van Leyden's never held a halberd before. So he stabs the blacksmith, but does it really poorly. And the guy isn't dead. And so the dude's on the ground screaming because he's in so much pain.
Yeah.
And Jan van Lyden's above him, like, I don't really know what to do. Everyone's around him, like, what are you doing? Like, you have to finish him. Like, you can't just let him be in pain like this. People are, like, screaming around him. And, some people are, but much of the crowd is just completely quiet because they're so confused on what's happening. Like, they can't believe the events that are unfolding in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then Jan van Lyden goes into the crowd, grabs someone's handgun, like a flintlock sort of thing, because it's 1534.
I was gonna say, he's got fucking
the guns in this age aren't really, very... All this happened, by the way.
Oh, I know.
So Jan van Lyden grabs the handgun and shoots him in the head, and he's still not dead.
My lord.
He's like, half his head is blown away, and dude's not dead. And he gets carried away by the people, like, by some people. And the crowd is, like, hushed, because they, like, just saw this, like, really terrible failed murder of, like, this guy they really love.
Mm-hmm. His brains are
and Jan Matthias, like, somewhat calmed down, but still freaking out. It's like, sing! You must sing now! Like, rejoice! And sort of like the front of the crowd, who's, like, really into the whole Anabaptist thing, does it. And, like, slowly more and more people join in. And at first it seems like they're being just forced to sing, and they're doing it reluctantly, but they get into it more and more and more, as they sing and realize, like, they're getting into the fanaticism of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're singing, Jan Matthias, he starts yelling louder. He says, there are people in this town who don't believe in Anabaptism, and orders that everyone who joined after a certain date is locked in the cathedral. And guards start going through the crowd and grabbing people, and some people are screaming, but the people are still singing that, no one's going to help them. Everyone's just continuing to sing.
Ooh,
and so the next scene, Jan Matthias arrives to a withered, scared crowd in a cathedral with armed men. The people are crying and begging. There's, like, kids in here. Like, this is really messed up. Mm-hmm. And they beg, and he's like, please spare us, please. And Jan Matthias kneels down on the ground. He says he'll talk to God, and he kneels down on the ground and starts having a conversation with, the invisible entity, God, in this
Geo single D, baby.
And he stands up and he says, God has agreed to spare you, but you now have to go around the city and collect all the money and gold of the city and put it in a depot. And so they agree, and they start doing that. And the next scene, we have Jan van Lyden, the sort of the actor, is swimming in all the money. He kind of likes it.
Yeah.
He got, like, Scrooge McDuck sort of thing. He's like, this is pretty cool. It's like I'm finally getting what I wanted out of this. Maybe right before this, he gets, like, a letter from his wife that's like, hey, are you coming? Should I come soon? He just throws it away. He's like, I don't give a fuck.
Burned it.
And he's swimming in the money. And that's when Bernard Knipperdolling comes in, the businessman. He tells him they got a meeting. And he goes into the room, and it's all the dudes. It's, Bernard Rothman, Bernard Knipperdolling, Jan Matthias, Jan van Lyden, and some other dude.
Mm-hmm.
One other dude whose name isn't going to be mentioned, but we're going to have to remember his face because he's important for the end of the story.
Okay.
Because it's important because he's just some other guy, and I will refer to him as some other guy because that's who he is. It's just some other guy.
I'm picturing Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves is the other guy.
Okay, good.
No, that's unfortunate for Keanu. Maybe pick someone you don't like. Let's do Michael Shannon because he's got kind of a buggy face.
He does have a buggy face. Michael Shannon is the other guy. All right.
Michael Shannon. So we've got Jan van Lyden, Jan Matthias, the prophet, Bernard Rothman, the old educated, preacher, and Bernard Knipperdolling, the businessman, in there with Michael Shannon. And they learn from Michael Shannon that the reinforcements have been killed. And we as he's talking about this, we see scenes of all these peasants, coming across the land in boats and all these different things. Like, to get to Munster, just being absolutely massacred by vastly, armored knights and, just, way superior, killing machines of people. Like, just, the armies of the lords of Germany are just absolutely wrecking these
religious peasants.
Cloth-wearing peasants with, pitchforks and stuff,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we're seeing this massacre, and Jan Matthias stands up and he leaves, and the rest of them are like, what? The leader just left. We need to decide something. Why is he leaving? And so they keep talking after he left, but they don't really have any idea what to do. And the next scene, they're still waiting on him to like figure out what they're doing, but they're at a wedding now, and so they're all coming up to him at this wedding, like, hey, are we gonna do anything about this thing? And then finally, they each go and turn up to him, and the last person that goes up to him is Jan van Leyden. He's like, we've really got to come up with something. Like, do you have anything at all? Like, I can come up with something if you don't have anything. Just let me do it if you can. And at this moment, Jan Matthias has an epileptic seizure.
Oh.
In the middle of this wedding, so everyone looks over at him, and he falls and he smashes his head on the table like brutally. Like if you've seen Better Call Saul, it's like when Chuck falls on the counter. Like it's that brutal smack, and then boom, hits the floor and the blood's leaking out.
Yeah.
And he passes out, and with the blood still leaking out, like a couple minutes later, like everyone's confused. He wakes up, and he starts talking to the invisible entity again. It's that he claims is God. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yes, if it is not by my will, but by thine will, it shall be done. And he stands up, he starts kissing everyone in the wedding, and everyone's so confused, and he just leaves.
And he's dripping blood everywhere. Getting it on him.
Yeah, there's blood all over the place. Everyone is so confused on what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And Bernard Knipperdarling, Bernard Rothman, and Jan van Leyden all chase him out. And he collapses in the street, and they grab him and they bring him to bed. And they're talking to him, and they're like, what's happening? And people are coming into his bedroom and asking, is he okay? What is happening? And Jan Matthias, on his deathbed, or seemingly, tells them reinforcements are not coming. Tells the people that have all gathered around his bed. And that God has told him that he alone, well, not quite alone, has to go out and defeat the army with a small honor guard, including the man who just got married.
Oh,
by the way.
No.
So poor dude.
Poor dude.
He's like, maybe we have some little comedic thing where he's like, oh, fuck, jeez. I have to go out there.
Yeah, maybe he's drinking.
And so
he's taking a drink of a goblet. It's beer, because it's Germany. And he gets, he spits it out, and they just chugs the entire thing and, turns it upside down. Because he's, gonna go die now.
Yeah. And so the next day, Jan Matthias suits up in, the coolest suit of armor we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so are all of his men, right? So they've got all the wealth of the town in depots, and so they grab all the best stuff that they have, all the best weapons, all the best armor. And so these 10 guys in Jan Matthias, it's actually 12 in total, so a dozen men, are all geared up, and they open the gates of the city. And so what you need to understand about this time period is that they have cannons, right?
Yeah.
And so the Prince Bishop's men are really far away. And so there's this massive, because there's cannons that the Prince Bishop's men have, and there's cannons that the city have. And so they have to be really far away, just outside of cannon range. So there's this massive, maybe 2 football fields size no man's land in between the two, the city and the army.
Mm-hmm.
And so the dozen men come out of the city. Jan Matthias, in this black epic suit of armor with a big cross spear or something. We're gonna get really religious with the costume.
He's gonna have something. Maybe it's a flaming sword. That could be good.
Yeah, a flaming sword's better. You're right. Yeah.
Comes out with.
And so he's got a big flaming sword, and it's the most epic force you've ever seen. You're holy crap. Will these dozen men actually defeat this whole army? They look cool enough that they might do it.
Maybe.
And the music is swelling. We have this huge, epic soundtrack. And the 12 men charge across the field. And we're going to get, the view of the people, the people in Munster who hear this epic soundtrack, that when we're in their view, we hear the epic soundtrack, we see them charging across the field. And then it switches to the view of the Prince Bishop. There's, no music playing. He's They're 12 men charging at us right now. Just 12 guys. That's it. I at first, and some of the commanders are is it is this a party to talk about terms? He's no, they're not flying a white flag. They're coming at us. They're charging. They look like they're charging, right?
They're gonna attack us.
And, the commanders and the Prince Bishop aren't really sure what's happening. And one of the commanders is well, we'll go out there with 500 cavalry and we'll take them out. And the Prince Bishop is okay, yeah. And so in the middle of the huge field, we go back to the epic soundtrack, and we see the 12 men charging across the field. They're screaming, singing, yelling, really religious things.
I'm assuming the epic
and the 500
soundtrack
cavalry
is like a mixture between like, I'm just thinking could be like a Led Zeppelin immigrant song mixture with like Gregorian chanting. Because I love Gregorian chanting. I think it's really cool. So you like get that in your soundtrack with like electric guitar.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of metal music. I was thinking of like, sort of Lord of the Ringsy sort of epic, but I kind of like the idea of something like Led Zeppelin, with Gregorian chant or something like that. Maybe that could be cool. And so we have these two, the 500 cavalry and 12 men. They're charging at each other, and we're like, holy crap, they're gonna win, aren't they? They're gonna win, and then they clash, and it is slaughter. Instantly, all 12 men are murdered. Absolutely slaughtered. Jan Matthias has his spear run through him. All of his guts pour out. So we're gonna get like this. I was thinking if we had a camera on the spear.
Oh yeah.
And we see it tear through his stomach and go out, and we can see the camera's looking back, and so we see the guts pour out as the camera passes it, and he falls onto the ground. His guts pouring out. He's trying to grab him and pick him up, and he's off his horse. His horse is continuing to run, and he's tumbled in the mud. And then men come around him and start chopping off his arms and legs as he's crawling on the ground, trying to crawl back to Munster. So his right arm goes off, left arm goes off, right leg goes off, left leg.
No. Chop his head off.
And it's terrible. And then eventually he just falls to the ground, because he's lost all of his arm. He's dead. Yeah. It's over. And his head is chopped off, and it's put on a stake. And the people in the town are like, what the fuck just happened? And they see a lone rider come up to the gate, and they're so mystified, they don't even shoot at him or anything. And he goes up to the gate, and they hear a pounding on the gate, and then he rides away. And Jan van Leyden opens the gate. Or maybe you gotta have Henry Gress or somebody else. It doesn't really matter, actually. Opens the gate, and they look on the door of the gate. Charlie, what do you think's on the door of the gate?
Is it his head?
Worse. It is his dick.
Oh, no.
They have nailed his genitals to the gate.
Oof.
This really happened.
I believe you. That is fucking crazy.
Now we're running a little long here, but I'm just going to keep going.
That's all right. We had 15 minutes of preamble before we start doing the podcast, so...
that is true. So I'm sorry if this is kind of a long one, but this story is going to get more insane, so it's worth it. The people are lost. They're like, we just saw our fucking prophet get absolutely murdered. Nothing that he said was right. And Jan van Leyden is freaking out, and so is Bernard Knipperdolling and Bernard Rothman. And Rothman is what are we going to do? The whole thing is a sham. Our whole religion, nothing is real. And Jan van Leyden says, no, it's not. And he pulls... Bernard Knipperdolling to the side. He's like, hey, I have an idea. And we cut to this up the balcony, and the whole crowd of Munster is confused in front of them, what is happening? Where are they? And Jan van Leyden steps out with Jan Matthias's young 20-something wife, all dressed in white. And he says that they're now married. And up there, Bernard Knipperdolling is also there. Bernard Rothman in this instance is in the crowd. He's not up there with them. And Jan van Leyden says Jan Matthias' death was what God intended. He says that Jan Matthias was told to go out alone, and not with this honor guard. And because he did that, and additionally because he was arrogant and was going to take the credit for himself and not give it to God, that's why he was killed.
Okay.
And the crowd's like, what? They believe him, but they kind of don't, because they're this is the religious head that we've dealt with, and they need some sort of lifeline to continue their belief, because they can't deal with this just hard break, their prophet dying. It's all
and he
over.
Got his dick cut off and nailed to a wall.
Yeah, nailed to the fucking wall. And so Jan van Leyden says that he knew this for 8 days, and he told Bernard Knipperdolling as proof. And Bernard Knipperdolling, he was the former town council member, or he still is actually. And he's been in this town for a long time. People trust and respect him. He says, yeah, that is what happened. And also, Jan Matthias said that Jan van Leyden should marry his wife. Not Jan Matthias said it, but God said that Jan van Leyden should marry Jan Matthias' wife. And the crowd's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Jan for Jan, I get it.
And then, Bernard Nipperdalling, whispers to Jan Van. He's like, I don't know how they bought that, but, I think we've got some time. You're going to need something good to, keep them going on with our, keep get them more.
Yeah.
Well, see, it's not really a con at this point. Bernard Nipperdalling still believes in it. Jan Matthijs doesn't really believe in it, but they both realize the crowd is not fully devoted,
Mm-hmm.
And so the next day, Jan Van Leyden goes through the street buck naked. So we've got, Austin Butler running through the streets completely naked, running and yelling for the people. He says, people of Zion, wake up, wake up, wake up. At this point, they believe that they're like the New Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And he's yelling for people to wake up, and he's like, and it collapses in the center of town. He can't speak. And so they bring him writing utensils, and he writes down that God wants to get rid of the town council and replace them with 12 elders. And he names all of them, all of whom happen to be extremely loyal to Jan Van Leyden.
Mm-hmm.
And he names Bernard Nipperdalling as chief executioner, which nobody really understands what he means by that until he explains the next part, which is that God said that all law breaking now, every punishment for breaking the law is death. And he brings back a bunch of Old Testament laws, like, lying and stuff like that is against the rules.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially this means is that everyone in the town is always breaking the law, or has broken the law.
Yeah.
And the only person that can commute any sentence is Jan Van Leyden. So it's real, we're fully into the totalitarian,
Yeah.
There's no more goodwill being passed around here.
We're not freeing women from convents anymore. We're just chopping people up for...
We're chopping heads off,
Yeah.
That's the way it's going.
stealing bread or whatever.
Also, all doors must be left open at all times, and children are informing on their parents now. And everyone is organized into military companies. So we get this another montage,
1984
probably.
style. The kids tell on the moms.
Mm-hmm. We get probably a big montage of all the doors being forcibly opened and children, snitching on their parents and all resources. So all food, all metal, everything that might be useful is being put into depots. And in the next scene, we get the Prince Bishop's men preparing for an attack. We're gonna get these soldiers that are really drunk, talking about how they're getting ready for the fight tomorrow. We're gonna wipe out these Anabaptists. It's gonna be so easy. And they're getting really, really, really drunk. And one of them goes out for a piss, and he looks over and he sees the sun. And it's very clearly to the audience, to us viewing it, the sun is currently setting. But to him, he thinks it's rising because he's that drunk.
Yeah.
And this happened, Charlie. That he thinks it's so drunk that he thinks the sun is rising. And so he runs back to his other men. And he's like, we gotta go, this mercenary company, we've gotta attack now, the attack's gonna happen soon. If we don't, get in there soon, we won't be able to join in the looting. And so they start charging. And this probably wouldn't have been a problem in real life, if not for the fact that the rest of the army looks along and they start charging too. They're like, oh shit, we gotta go, guys.
I guess it was...
it's gonna be really funny. We're gonna be going along the battle line with the camera, all these mercenary companies, oh fuck, we gotta hop in, we're not gonna be part of the looting if we don't join in. Seeing all these guys very haphazardly running with their weapons barely held up, the shields clunking, people dropping shit, just running at the
Somebody
walls.
trips, stab themselves,
Yeah, they're holding the ladders, but they're kind of dragging them, it's a real whole mess of this assault. And we go to the Prince Bishop's view, and he's having dinner with some of the commanders, and the guy rushes in. He's like, so the men are charging. He's like, what? The men are what? Why? Why were they? We're not supposed to do it till sunset. Till this, or to sunrise. The day's not even. That's tomorrow that we're supposed to charge. And they go out, and the commanders are all confused, and they're like, why are our men going? Why are they charging? None of this makes any sense.
And everybody's also.
So we
drunk.
go back to the. Yeah, everyone's drunk. It's a whole complete mess. The whole army's going forward without their commanders or supplies. We go back to the walls of the city into the view of Jan Van Leyden, who's riding around a white horse.
Is he still naked?
No, he's not naked anymore. He's wearing clothes. He's probably wearing cool battle armor like Jan Matthijs was, but probably not as cool just because we want to show the...
Yeah, and they don't have
difference.
that cool battle armor anymore because he got all chopped up and his dick got chopped. It's nailed to a wall.
But to his credit, he kind of seems like a con man at this point. But to his credit, he is riding around, like, he's putting himself in danger, riding around a white horse, rallying the people. All the women are repairing holes in the walls that were made from the cannons, because, like, the cannons that are shooting at the city walls. And, like, the ladders are going up, and, like, they're just immediately getting pushed down. And the Anabaptists are absolutely slaying this professional army. Because they're so organized, and they have people that are all ready in every position that they should be, like dropping oil and stuff on these people.
And they're all sober.
Yeah, they're also all sober. And the Anabaptists probably lose like 10 people in this fight, and the army loses like hundreds of guys. One guy even defects and like joins the Anabaptists.
I mean, I would.
He's gonna be important in a second. Yeah, well,
I mean,
maybe not.
No, I would, because I'd be like, hey, look, their God's obviously God's on their side because we're losing. If God were really on our side, we'd be winning. Let me join up with you guys.
Yeah.
I'll put all my money in a big grain silo.
Yeah. So they rejoice, and Jan van Leyen tells Bernard Rothman, he's like, go send out more letters, tell everyone about our success. And they go out to have a big feast. And at this feast, a 15-year-old girl comes up to Jan van Leyen, and she offers to gift a poisoned shirt to the Prince Bishop and pretend to be a defector. Like, pretend to be a defector, go up there and gift a poisoned shirt. Because they're like, well, maybe I can just get rid of the Prince Bishop, and then we'll,
they'll leave us alone.
We'll be set.
Yeah.
And Jan van Leyen's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. Like, you can die. Who cares? Like, doesn't matter to me. And after dinner, he goes and he bangs some maid and is spotted by the defector who just joined from the Prince Bishop. And he starts telling people about it, the defector. He's like, this guy's insane. And so while he's telling people about it, like, he's like, oh, there's, the Jan van Leyen, the guy who's so pious and is like our leader, our new prophet, is not really so pious. Like, he's banging some maid. He's breaking the rules.
Banging some maid, bro. Not cool, dog. Especially with your new
So
wife.
even more, we get the feeling that Jan van Leyen's really just a con man. And while this is happening, the girl is dressed in finery and like all the nice stuff of the city, and is sent out from the walls, and she walks across no man's land and defects. And she goes up, and in the camp where we see she's defects, we see Henry Gress. Henry Gress, being the brother of the blacksmith, he's in the camp of the Prince Bishop. And the girl, goes up to the Prince Bishop and tells him the plan. But we see Henry Gress like give the Prince Bishop a nod, and they grab the girl, and this is pretty brutal. She's broken on the wheel. So they know that they know her plan. Like, Henry Gress has told her plan. She's broken on the wheel, which is basically like all of her limbs are stretched out, and they take big hammers and they break all of her bones, which is not great, obviously.
Pretty bad.
And then she's executed. So at the execution, this is kind of cool though. At the execution, the headsman puts her head on the block, and he looks up at her, and or she looks up at him, and this young 15-year-old. Who's broken on the wheel, still has like some, gumption to her, still has got some guts, and he says like, you have no power over me. Like, her belief isn't broken yet somehow.
Oh.
And the executioner looks down and he says, we'll see about that. And he cuts her head off.
Straight cut off.
And you're like, okay, it's pretty cold line. So it's kind of cool.
That is pretty cold. Pretty badass.
Yeah, but also he just killed a 15-year-old, so not
super badass.
Not that cool.
But in a world where in a time period where the average lifespan was like 30, 15's not bad. You're old enough to have a midlife crisis.
It was brutal, It's brutal, but it was kind of like brutal in like
in a cool way. It was brutal.
Cool way. If we're gonna do it like that, at least it's not just horrific. It's kind of like
we give the girl a badass line to end her life on.
Yeah, we give So back in Munster, the girl's head just got chopped off. Maybe we'd have like a good match cut. It's like the sound of her neck getting cut, and like Jan van Leyen cutting a steak. So he's like, while people are dying for him, he's just having nice and good fun.
Yeah, having fun, banging maids, eating steaks.
And he's hearing about, like, you know, Bernard Rothman or Nipperdalling, probably Nipperdalling, comes up to him and says, like, hey, like, there's some rumors about you going around about how you're banging random people and, you know, that you're breaking the rules of our religion. Like, you got to resolve this somehow. And he thinks for a second. And he's like, okay. And he goes up, he, like, you know, puts his steak knife down. He goes up in front of the, like, the people that are, you know, all having dinner. And the way this works is, like, basically everyone has big communal dinners together in this, like, in this society now. So, like, basically everyone in town, a lot of people, are gathered eating dinner. He goes up and he starts to give a speech, and he says that God wants polygamy. Which is hilarious in this society, because we have a very conservative Christian group, and now they're gonna have, like, orgies and shit, like 16 wives to a man. You know,
no lady polygamy. No lady's allowed to have more than one husband, but men can have as many wives as they want.
Yep. And he tells the crowd that it's okay in the Old Testament. Like, he says Solomon supposedly had 600 wives. There's too many women in the city anyway, so there's 3 women to every man. So it's, you know, it's a good thing, because, you know, the women that are being told that they should multiply are, you know, they can't have a man. So if they have sex with someone, that's against the rules. So they should get married to, you know, it should be okay for a man to have more than one wife. And he tells Bernard Rothman, he's like, hey, you know, like, you send out these pamphlets, like, tell the people of, you know, the world that, you know, what I say is the way to go. So it must be, like, because I'm the prophet, what I have to say is the way. That should be enough, right? Like, he shouldn't have to explain himself. He should just be able to say something is the case now, and it should be okay. And Bernard Rothman's like, I guess, you know.
That's bro.
Like, I guess that kind of makes sense. He's, you know, he's still, like, he's not totally into what Jan van Leyden's saying, but he is totally into the Anabaptist belief that he's just like, sure. So after this, we see, like, you know, people going through the town, like men going up to random houses and being like, well, I need another wife, and you've got a daughter, and she has to marry me. And the young girls are being forced into marriages. People are not happy about this, like their daughters being taken away and forced into stuff. Like, women are being, you know, forced to marry.
Forced to marry.
Men have, like, all these wives now. So the men, you know, the men that like this whole, like, sort of terrible lifestyle, like, you know, this crazy, like, you know, forcing all these people to marry them lifestyle, they're into it, but a lot of people aren't. And as this is happening, we see more and more people, like, you know, like, upset when their daughters are being taken away in this montage, or, you know, just maybe not a montage, because we have done you know what I mean,
montages. Yeah, but, you know, we could just do, like,
but we see people upset, and, like, there's a gathering in the next scene, and there's a gathering of all these people that are upset because their daughters are being taken, or because, you know, they don't like this view, that this like thing that's kind of heretical to what they've been
or their
told
husband is having sex with a bunch of other women, or, you know, some
So, like, all these people are together, and they're like, we're gonna rebel, you know, like, they grab weapons from the depot, and they go up to the main house where all the leaders are, you know, Bernard Rothman, Jan van Leyden, and Bernard Nipperdalling, and they capture all of them. They put them in the jail in City Hall, and at that point, they aren't really sure what to do, and there's, like, some, you know, discontent among them. Like, what do we do now? Do we open the gates for the Prince Bishop? Do we get together the old town council and put them in charge? Like, do we kill these guys? Like, what's going to happen?
Play.
And while they're discussing, one person slips out, and they go and they start. This is like, you know, Paul Revere running around the town, like, telling people, like, rise up. They've taken our leaders. We have to get them back. And this, like, counter rebellion arrives, and they, like, beat up the people that, not killing them, beating them up, like, because they don't really have any weapons. And they, like, beat up all the people that were part of the original rebellion. They free Jan van Leyden and the other leaders. And Jan van Leyden steps out of the jail cell like this, you know, like God intended it. With all the swagger, and he says that God has demanded that we kill all the plotters. You know, like, these people are terrible. Like, how dare they go against us? And, you know, we see all the plotters get hanged or forced to dig their graves and then shot in the back of the head, and their heads are chopped off by Jan van Leyden as he's riding through the street with a sword. Like, he has them start running down the road.
Real brutal shit.
And has a big sword, and starts riding after them with his horse, and he just chops all their heads off. But he's not good at it, so he just gets like a weird chop, and then he has to like run back, or like people come up behind him and start like actually finish them by putting the knife in their heart.
Yeah, like in that one Game of Thrones House of Dragons thing where they chop the guy heads off, and it's just like you see his tongue waggling around.
Yeah, so real brutal. After this, a goldsmith comes up and he says that Jan van Leyden is the second coming of David. Like, he's not just a prophet, he's a king, like he's above that. And he brings to the town elders who are in charge of the town now after the council got kicked out, like the people that are loyal to Jan van Leyden. Yeah. And he brings before them like a gold scepter, a crown, a sword, and rings. And this seems very staged. Like, to the crowd and us, it seems like Jan van Leyden has planned this. Like, none of this feels natural. And Jan van Leyden does the typical thing that, like, kings do, where he's, like, resists it. He's like, well, I'm too young. Like, I don't really want this. But the goldsmith's like, you must. And he's like, well, okay, I will. I will not reject the will of God. And the crowd is kind of reluctant as he, like, grabs the scepter and puts it on. Because they're like, he's a monarch now. Like, this is really going against everything that we planned originally. And Jan van Leyden shames them for their reluctance. And he says that anyone that, is against him will die. And so they, are forced into this. Like, the crowd is reluctant, but they, they don't want to die, and also they still believe in their prophet.
Yeah.
So they're not going to rebel.
Not the second time. They saw how it ended up for the first time.
And so Jan van Leyden declares this, like, royal court of, like, different people. It gives them titles and all this stuff. And we have this big feast, and the food is low, and we have this big, disparity. On one side of the table, we have everyone that's poor and is eating like gruel, and meanwhile Jan van Leyden is eating like a king. He's got big steak, he's got mashed potatoes. I don't really know what kind of food they ate in this time, but that kind
I don't think
stuff,
they had potatoes at this point in time in Europe.
I don't. They might have,
but potatoes are an American crop.
But I don't remember what the year is, but I don't know if we've found America yet. Maybe we have.
1492.
I think it's like 14. Yeah, but isn't it 1534 or something here? I think it's 1534.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe
we might have potatoes. I don't know when potatoes came over. So we got stuff. We got nice food. That's what matters. So we get this feeling there's no more equality, and like it's just a monarchy now, right? That's kind of the idea. That's sort of together. And the people at the other end of the table are like grumbling. And Jan van Leyden, while he's eating his big steak, can sort of realize this. And in the next scene, he calls the city together and says, God will save them soon. Like the siege will end soon. By Easter, it will happen. If God doesn't save the city by then, they can kill him. And he goes up to Bernard Nipperdalling. He's like, why would you say something like that? Like, what's like is like you're gonna be killed. And he's like, don't worry. I bet the reinforcements will come soon. He gathers some people, and he calls them like apostles, and he says like, go out and you will raise Anabaptists, right? And one of these people is Henry Gress, and so they're sent out of the city. And Henry Gress immediately runs to the Prince Bishop and tells him what he's doing, and all we see every single of these apostles killed by the Prince Bishop. As they're like they don't get out. They're not able to slip past the lines of the Prince.
One's hit by an arrow, maybe one shot with a cannon, stabbed with a halberd, descended upon by dogs. All of them could die in a fun way. I mean, not a fun way, but you know what I mean. Fun to watch.
One of the people gets through, and we're gonna have this cool little scene where Bernard Rothman gets a letter through to Martin Luther, the guy behind this whole Reformation in the first place, and Martin Luther sends back a letter, and Bernard Rothman's like, oh my God, I got the legendary Martin Luther, he's like this huge figure, he has so much, if we can get his support, then maybe we'll be okay. And he reads the letter, and it's just the most disparaging, essay he's ever written about like Martin Luther writing about how like they're all evil and how like they should all be killed and they're all following Satan and like everything that they believe is a lie and it's a con. And he's like, holy shit.
Oh my god.
I really can't show anyone this. This is really bad. We get this feeling that like if he did show the people this, they would turn on them immediately. Mm-hmm. Like they would believe Martin Luther because he's like this big figure from the day.
Yeah, and the now.
And yeah. And it's only like a couple days before Easter, and like somebody comes up to, like, some of the people are grummaging, like, or like they come up to grummaging. I don't really know what that word means, so I said that.
It is.
The people are coming up to Jan van Leyden and being like, why are we not delivered yet? Like, where are the reinforcements? And Jan van Leyden suddenly falls on the floor and pretends like he's had like a seizure. But, you know, it's not like Jan Matthias' seizure, which was a real seizure. He's, like, clearly faking it. And he stands up and he says that people have been spiritually delivered. He misunderstood God. And that they weren't actually going to be saved here. They were going to be saved in the afterlife. And people, like, kind of believe it, but not really. You know, it's enough to get him to leave him alone, and they won't kill him on Easter.
Yeah. But maybe.
And in the night.
A little bit after Easter. We'll see. Yeah.
And a lot of people defect after this. Like we see in the night after he says this, people are leaving the city. Henry Gress being one of them. And Henry Gress is like telling people as he's leaving that like Jan van Leyden's a liar. And everything he says is a scam. And he's been scamming us from the beginning. And people are like, wow. Like, I mean, he's like, finally someone speaks out and tells the truth, you know? Mm-hmm. And then he leaves the city because he's going to be killed if he stays, obviously, for saying this. Goes back to the Prince Bishop. And more people leave as well, and they go to like this huge contingent of people go up to Jan van Leyden and like are saying like, we don't believe in this kingdom anymore, we want to leave. And he's like, you can leave, you just can't come back, and we won't let you back. And this huge contingent goes out, you know, not the people that went out in the night, you know, secretly in ones and twos. This is like a huge crowd of probably like 500 people. And they all go out of the city and they go to the Prince Bishop, and the Prince Bishop refuses to take them either. He's like, they're Anabaptists, you know, I mean, they won't renounce their faith, so I won't let them through. And so their people are stuck in the middle of no man's land, starving to death.
Oof.
And so you have this like terrible scene of these people just dying, and some of the Prince Bishop's soldiers are smuggling them food to keep them alive. But you know, all these people are just dying in front of the city walls, and we see like Jan van Leyden standing on the walls watching them die, and people around him like kind of nervous about like he's letting these people die, and like this is terrible.
Mm-hmm. Drinking
and we go back to the Prince Bishop, and it's nighttime, and he's got some defectors telling them like all the plans. He's like, all right, we're gonna attack, and he picks out 400 men, and like he knows all this. He's like been told all these weak points by the defectors we're gonna see in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And he picks out 400 men, he sends them in. We got this sort of like elite squad of 400 that sneak in the city at night, and they start killing the guards silently, you know, like, kind of like Assassin's Creed style, like, you know, going up and stabbing them in the back.
Yeah, stabbing them in the back with a hidden blade, doing a big jump into a hay pile. Traveling to the future. Being in video.
I'm gonna run through the rest quick because we're going kind of long.
This is a long one.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, but I like it.
So 400 men, they go in the town. They sneak in. Eventually, the Anabaptists find them, and there's a big fight in the middle of town with the 400 versus like all the Anabaptists, and the 400 are kind of losing because there's way more Anabaptists. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, this is a town of 10,000. There's probably like 4,000 people left, so they're way outnumbered.
Yeah.
And, you know, now King Jan van Leyden is like, you know, you can leave, but you can't bring your weapons. And the commander of the 400 men refuses, and he sends a man to the gates to call for reinforcements. And this guy, like, sneaks up to the gates, and at dawn, he raises this flag, and he's like, get the hell over here. Like, we need reinforcements. Like, come help us. And the Prince Bishop's men storm the city. And it's an absolute slaughter as soon as the main army gets there. Absolute carnage. This is going to be really brutal. It's not going to look pretty morally on either side now because the Prince Bishop's men are just killing everybody.
Women, children.
Essentially, every man in the city dies.
Yeah.
If you're a man, you die. If you're a woman or a child, you might live. Bernard Nipperdalling is captured. Bernard Rothman is going to be dressed in white and dies in the fighting. He has like this, this big spear, and he's like, it's kind of cool. We got this like professor figure who's like, so into the beliefs that he, just goes out and starts fighting. Like he's not even he doesn't want to be captured. He believes in it more. He believes in it more than anyone else in the leadership did. Really. Then I guess besides Jan Matthias, he charged forward in the.
Besides that dead guy.
Yeah, but Bernard Nipperdalling gets captured trying to flee, and Jan Van Leyden, the new prophet, the guy that's the leader, the king, is also trying to leave. He's dressed as like a woman trying to hide amongst the crowd,
of course,
and he gets caught. And in the aftermath, we see like the walls are being torn down, all the men are being killed. Jan Van Leyden and Bernard Nipperdalling and the other guy, as you remembered, our Keanu Reeves guy, or
Mako Shannon guy, yeah.
I think we decided, yeah, is also being tortured. They're all in like the same 3 cells. They're being brought out and screamed and they're screaming in turn, like because they're being tortured individually. Jan Van Leyden, when he's being tortured, is like bargaining. He's like trying to get his way out. Like, I'll do anything you want. Like, I'll say that our beliefs are bad. I'll go around to each town. I'll say that it's bad. Like, just do anything. I want to get out. But nothing he says is
that's not gonna work, buddy.
To. And the final scene is all those 3 men are brought out in cages to like the center of town where this massive crowd is gathered. And they put spiked collars on their necks, and they're hung on this platform with like on this stake, and like sort of this like on all sides of the stake, sort of like a triangle, you know what I mean? So like each side, so people can view them, and individually, one at a time, people go up to, or like the torturer goes up to them with 2 iron burning tongs, like these really
red hot
metal tongs, and grabs their armpits and tears down so that the flesh lights on fire and starts tearing them apart. I don't know how we're going to show this really, because I don't want to like maybe we'll show like a little thing of it, like at the beginning, like we'll show them grab onto it, the guys scream, and then I want to cut to like one of the other people's faces, because they're being tortured one at a time.
So they know
so
what's
going to be watching
happen.
Like Bernard Nipperdalling's face as he can hear just right next to him Bernard or Jan Van Leyden screaming and like the terrible flesh sounds, and all that.
Maybe we show
watch his face as he hears like his friend being torn apart.
Yeah, we show them clamping down, and just as the guy's about to pull down, we cut to the guy's face as he's like horrified, and then maybe we can cut to the ground, and like onto the dirt is falling these like flaming, clumps of viscera. So we don't get too graphic with it, but we're definitely implying a whole lot of horrible shit's going on just off screen.
And I think it's really important to show like one of the other guys' faces during this, because I want them to like, they know this is going to happen to them next, right? That's the horrific part. They have to hear and smell, and
maybe one like, throws up.
Oh yeah, they vomit onto the floor. And also, while he's hearing Jan Van Leyden being torn apart, not only just being torn apart, by the way, but like if he passes out during it, they stop, revive him, and then start again, because they have to be tortured for a full hour, is the historical thing. So like we'll have one thing where he passes out, and then they like, they help him get back to
splash some water in his
and
face.
They start tearing him out again. And during this, Bernard Nipperdalling tries to strangle himself on his collar, and then they raise it up so he can't. Like it's kind of low, so he can. It's like he's trying to hang himself on it, and then they raise it up right against his jaw so that he can't move at all. And I'm thinking that like it ends with Jan Van Leyden dying, and then we get over like the executioner goes up to Bernard Nipperdalling. He reheats the tongs, and he grabs his armpits, and we cut to black. We hear the scream, and then title card credits.
Title card. The Seers of Doom.
And in the credits, we will see that you'll see the picture of, because this is still here today. After they killed them, they put their bones in cages and they put them on a steeple above the city, and those cages are still here to this day.
Wow, I like that. That's fun.
That is the Seers of Doom.
I liked it a lot. I think that was really cool.
It's pretty brutal.
I think it's one of the few things we've made. You made it. I just listened and said, But one of the few...
Well, history made it. I just sort of copied the story from
one
history.
of the few things we've done where we could genuinely have based off true events written on the, before the movie starts.
Yeah.
This is going to be a long movie, though. This is going to be like the Irishman epic.
This is like a 2.5 hour movie, yeah.
It's going to be at least as long as this episode of the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I've been your host, Charles Lung. With me, as always, has been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Bloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. And remember, we will be here next week with a brand new televisual series for you to imagine. Now, I have to go, because my laundry has been sitting in the dryer for the past 40 minutes. Done.
Woo. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I knew. I did it on purpose. I knew what was happening. But thanks, everyone, and thank you, Jacob. The show was very fun in a horrible, religious sort of a way.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm gonna make the next week's episode is gonna be light. To be light and breezy.
Yeah. My next one will be nice as well. That was pretty horrific.
No, but I liked it though. Everyone, sweet dreams.